Welcome back to the TwinSpires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson to look back at the Saudi Cup, the Rebel Stakes, the Lone Kentucky Derby prep race from the past weekend, and Dwayne Lucas's win with Lemon Muffin in the Grade 3 Honeybee. James, let's start with the world's richest race, the Saudi Cup. We had an upset winner in Senor Buscador in that race. What were your takeaways from the Saudi Cup?
Well, Senor Buscador turned in a career best performance, rallying determinedly to overhaul Ushba Tesoro and Saudi Crown in the final strides of the $20 million Saudi Cup. And this 6-year-old horse has just really come on, I believe, in his last 2 starts for Todd Fincher. He was exiting a next second to National Treasure in the Pegasus World Cup, and then he carried that form forward over there. And granted, he got the right setup, but Senor Buscador was a horse that last year was competing in Grade 1 races and wasn't effective. He was the best he really could do. It's like third, a lot of fourths and fifths as well. And he's just stepped up his game in the last couple of starts. And this is a horse that used to be more of a miler. I thought a mile and an eighth at the Grade 1 level would test him as recently as a year ago. But he's obviously passed that mile and an eighth test. And I wouldn't put a mile and a quarter distances past him moving forward either. He's gotten a lot better since last year. And I thought that was a big effort. I thought Ushba Tesoro, that's a tough beat. I mean, you catch the speed and deep stretch like he did, and then you get nailed in the final jump by another closer. And Saudi Crown, I thought that was a huge effort. His second start this year as a 4-year-old. I think he's moved forward significantly from his 3-year-old season this year as a 4-year-old for Brad Cox. And let's face it, I mean, he's not going to have to deal with that long stretch in any races remaining in 2024. So I think his speed is going to be extremely dangerous in Grade 1 races in the U.S. the rest of the year, Vance.
Yeah, Senor Buscador is not the most adept 9-furlong performer, but make it a 1-turn mile and eighth, and he becomes a global star. He's now 4 for 5 lifetime in 1-turn races, which kind of tells you, I think, the path the connection should probably take with him. I'm going to slightly disagree with you about his World Cup. It appeared for a long time in the stretch of the Saudi Cup that he could need the extra ground. But his overall record to me suggests that the race won't be quite as strong a fit for him. I'll echo what you said about Saudi Crown. That was a terrific effort on his part. He kind of basically proved to me that mile races are also more of his forte. He's moving on to the Godolphin Mile next time, and possibly the Met Mile at Saratoga after that. I'll also bring up National Treasure and White Abarrio. The momentum they had at the second half of last season got stalled in this race. I'd expect White Abarrio to bounce back more effectively on his return to the U.S., just given he didn't run at all on Saturday. National Treasure seemingly ran his race, I thought, but he just simply wasn't good enough. And finally, I'll bring up both the Japanese pair of Ushba Tesoro and Derma Sotogake. They both proved that they're on par with the best of America's leading older males. And I think they'd both be prime contenders again in the Breeders' Cup Classic if they line up, Ashley.
Well, I'll just interject real quick. You said you're going to disagree slightly with me, but I think we got a major disagreement because I think that 1-turn mile and an eighth is more grueling and difficult than a 2-turn mile and an eighth. I think there's no breathers in that race. I thought Saudi Crown, he wants to go further. There's no cutting him back. There's no cutting Senor Buscador back off of that race, in my opinion. So they may not be good enough for races like the Classic or other Grade 1 races at a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter at America. But, I mean, you're just not going to cut them back the way they're going right now. I mean, they're coming off a top class showing against a world class field at a mile and an eighth, and there's no way they're cutting back in distance, I think, Vance.
Well, yeah, but if you say the Breeders' Cup Classic is potentially both beyond their capabilities, then
no, I'm saying the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is beneath their capabilities. I'm saying they're never going to run in a mile race the rest of their career. I mean, they're looking at like aiming for the Breeders' Cup Classic off of that race. They're not going to be cutting back a distance, I don't think. I think both horses are aiming for, races that are grade ones this summer at 2-turn distances. But we'll see.
Well,
We'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, given the fact that there's no really true good mile and a quarter older dirt males anymore, or we don't produce enough of them, of course, you're right that they'll probably continue to run at a mile and an eighth and a mile and a quarter. I'm just saying that their best efforts are going to be, 1-turn races or 1.5-turn races, mile and a 16th, maybe up to a mile and an eighth. If they're running at a mile and a quarter, I'm going to be looking somewhere else, possibly the Japanese horses.
I'm just saying they had to evolve to become top class mile and an eighth horses. And if they don't continue to evolve, then yes, but I wouldn't put it past them, Ashley and Vance, because we've seen that. I mean, we've seen Senor Buscador go from a grade 3 type winning miler to a grade 1 winner at a mile and an eighth. And Saudi Crown last year in November could never have run a race like that in that Saudi Cup. So I just think those horses are moving forward, and they may not have the aptitude for it, but they're not going to be the same horses they were in the past trying longer distances.
Got a lot of heated debate in the roundtable already. I will say, Vance, you made a good point. He's 4 for 5 at 1-turn, Senor Buscador. And then at the same time, he just came off that Pegasus World Cup second where he was just beaten by a neck. So he did do well at 2 turns in that event. But it did seem like, as you said, James, too, it was a perfect setup. You had that hot pace from Saudi Crown. And then one of the longest home stretches you're going to see, much longer than anything in the U.S. for Senor Buscador to get that deep closing rally to come up and win. So I don't know what to expect with the Dubai World Cup if he goes there at 2 turns, but I would probably look to some other horses that are more proven at 2 turns in that race. But it was interesting to see Senor Buscador. He turned the tables on a lot of rivals that had beaten him at 2 turns and other graded stakes back in the U.S. So let's just see what happens at 2 turns. I know there's a lot of debate here. Let's move back over to the U.S. for the Rebel for the only Kentucky Derby prep race of the weekend. We had Timberlake come out. He was a 4 to 5 post time favorite, won by 2 lengths. So Vance, were you impressed with that win?
I thought it was an effective effort returning from a long layoff. Certainly not one that knocked my socks off, as it appeared he didn't progress a whole lot off of his best juvenile form. He didn't need to, obviously, given he was an odds-on favorite to beat the rest of that field. I liked how he settled more nicely early on, though his drifting in the stretch and his post-race antics when his handlers attempted to drape him with a garland around his neck suggested he still has a little bit of maturing to do. He can build on this race as he moves forward to either the Arkansas Derby or Bluegrass, but I'd be on the lookout to try and fade him again if another miserly price is offered, James.
I'm going to disagree completely with. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Vance. Those were really good points. I didn't think Timberlake was that flashy. He wasn't like overly impressive, but it was a very encouraging comeback race. Especially, I didn't really like his 4th place effort in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I thought it was a weakening 4th. He was just fortunate nobody else could finish in that race. And he certainly proved inconsistent at times last year as a 2-year-old, but to me, he has talent. I mean, we saw it in certain races. I think he has the potential to be a top-class performer. I think he needed to win that race, and he did so by 2 lengths. So, he's a viable Kentucky Derby contender in my mind at this point, but his final prep will show us more, like Vance said, Ashley, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to take a stand against him, but I knew it was going to be tough to beat him in this field. That was one thing I noticed. The race rating came back a 114. It was much lighter than what he faced in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and even the Champagne. So looking at the field, it was really hard to find someone else who I thought could be a win contender. He really was the class of the field. I tried to beat him with Carbone, and really my takeaway there is Carbone has faded badly in his last 2 tries at 1 1/16 of a mile. So maybe he is better suited for shorter distances going forward. So those are my big takeaways. I don't know about Timberlake as a top contender, but he does have the most points currently on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard. But I would like to see him if he goes to the Arkansas Derby. Can he handle that stretch out in distance? Because Brad Cox even said that he looked a little bit tired toward the end. So can he handle another 16th of a mile going into the Arkansas Derby? I don't know if I did that math right. I think I did it right.
Yeah, 16th of a mile.
Yeah.
All right, well, on the Rebel undercard, we had the grade 3 Honeybee, and we had Lemon Muffin, a huge upset winner for Dwayne Lukas, Do you think she can follow a similar path to Secret Oath, who also won this race on her way to winning the Kentucky Oaks? James, what do you think?
I'm skeptical. Secret Oath had juvenile form, and Lemon Muffin had really not been running that well in like some 6 furlong maiden special weight races. She was coming off a runner-up effort. I guess she had been running second in her recent races without winning, but that race came back slow. And to me, she's going to not only have to run faster, but I didn't think it was the competition was very deep as well. So I'm skeptical. I just think Secret Oath had a lot more class, and it was a lot faster than Lemon Muffin is. I do want to mention real quick, Run Classic is a horse I've always been a fan of. He came back from a 296-day layoff on Saturday's Gulfstream Park Sprint and looked really good. He's now trained by Jose D'Angelo, who I didn't know much about before this Gulfstream meet started, but I'm a fan of his. I think he's a good up-and-coming trainer, and he's definitely got Run Classic on the right track. I think he's always been like a one-turn specialist type. The only problem was 6 of his first 11 starts came at 2 turns. Now that they've got him situated as a 6 furlong sprinter, I'm excited to see what Run Classic does moving forward, Vance.
Yeah, going back to Lemon Muffin's Honeybee, now it seems unlikely on paper that she'll follow in Secret Oath's steps, given her Honeybee was considerably slower, but I wouldn't discount her chances of eventually running well in the Kentucky Oaks. In Lukas's words, the filly had been crying out for more distance, and she showed as much, winning in convincing style despite her maiden status. Keep in mind also that this crop of 3-year-old fillies might not end up being as deep or as fast as the one in 2022. So Lemon Muffin might not have to be as good or as fast as Secret Oath if there are no nests, no Echo Zulus in this crop. So something to keep in mind. Finally, the last point I'd make is Wayne Lukas's record number of Honeybee winners includes a couple of other above average winners. In addition to Secret Oath, he also had 1989 winner Imaginary Lady, who went on to finish a solid second in the Kentucky Oaks to her Hall of Fame stablemate Open Mind. Imaginary Lady had also won the Santa Anita Oaks and later won the Black Eyed Susan and Princess Stakes, both grade 2 events. So Lukas has got a history of turning Honeybee winners into some really top flight fillies. So I'm not going to put it past Lemon Muffin just yet, Ashley.
And Wayne Lukas, he has a record tying 5 Oaks wins. If he gets a win with Lemon Muffin, he'll have the record with 6. He's also getting the Lifetime Achievement Award, first ever at the Kentucky Derby Museum ahead of Derby 150. So if anyone can figure this out with a maiden winner that just broke her maiden in the Honeybee, it's Wayne Lukas. But it is hard to compare the two because looking at Secret Oath, she never even raced at a sprint distance. Lemon Muffin started racing between 6 and 7 furlongs in her first 5 starts, needed that extra distance, and then broke her maiden racing for the first time at a route distance. So could she step forward? Certainly. But, she doesn't have a lot of time. She might get one more prep, the fantasy. I think you mentioned earlier to me before we were recording, Vance, that she's pointed toward the fantasy. So that's just one more route race before she takes on the Kentucky Oaks. That's a really tall task. But again, if anyone can do it, it's Wayne Lukas.
That's a fair point. And I thought both, you can look at both Timberlake and Lemon Muffin's races and question the competition a little bit and, make a point of that. But it's a fair point that Vance made. Maybe there just aren't that many fast 3-year-old fillies out there or any out there. And the same thing with Timberlake. We'll see how the competition develops around the country as well. So Wayne Lukas, it's always great to have him in the spotlight for that big weekend for either the Oaks or Derby. He's going to be the guest speaker at the Derby kickoff dinner, and that's going to be a sold-out, must-see affair in my book.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. We have a whole lot of Derby and Oaks prep action to recap next Tuesday, and check us out on Thursday with our best bets and fades on the TwinSpires jury.